Hello and welcome to my podcast, Become. My name is Sabine Kvenberg and I am your host. The content will inspire you to reach your aspirations and become the best version of yourself. I feature interviews with successful individuals from various industries delving into their personal and professional journey, how they overcame adversities and the strategies they used to achieve their goals. We have to become the person we are meant to be first, so we can live the life we are destined to live. That also means we must overcome challenges and work through difficult times to learn, grow, and become the next, more fabulous version of ourselves. I'm so glad that you're here. Let's get on this journey together. Hello and welcome to our show. Today I have a very special guest and I can't wait to talk with her because she is also originally from Germany. So I have a lot to talk about. Welcome, Beate. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, Sabine. Thank you so much for having me. Und hallo, wie geht's?
Oh, sehr gut, sehr gut. In your own words, you say you are, or on your entrepreneurial journey, is a crazy transition from being a broke single mom and immigrant who has or was $135,000 in debt to cracking the code and then selling my business to Bill Gates for millions during a prolonged recession. So when I read that, Beate, my ears were like perking up. I said, I have to have that lady on my show to hear all about it. But before we go into your story, I would like to know from you, as we discussed earlier, as an immigrant, you are originally from Germany. So where in Germany are you from and what made you move to the States?
Yeah, so the story is I was born in Munich. I was raised in Nuremberg, and then I lived back in Munich, and I started my career as a photographer in Munich. And then I became a photo editor because I realized very quickly that I've always been better at the business side behind things. It just kind of comes natural to me. And that's the way my brain functions. And then there was a moment where I am photo editor at Elle magazine. I'm 23 years old. In everybody's book, I have the dream job. I'm making really good money. I have all the prestige, the recognition that anybody can want at 23. And then my dad gets fired. My father was a CEO for a dairy company. And I looked at him and I saw that he was cocky, that he was pushy, and I recognized that I was very much like my father. And I made a conscious choice that I wanted to be recognized for who I was and liked for who I was, and not for the position that I had. And when you're an editor at Elle magazine, a photo editor, and you hold the key to which photographer comes in and, takes these photos, or you have influence over who gets hired, people will do anything for you. And you may think this is because of you. It has nothing to do with you. It has something to do with the position you hold. And then I went on a lifelong journey to figure out who that person is that I could be okay with.
So what happened after you made that conscious decision?
I quit my job. I left everything. I sublet my apartment and I left for a year abroad that has not ended to this day, many, 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 many years later. And I stayed in the industry. So I first went to Key West, to Florida, and I stayed there for a couple of months, living on a houseboat without water and electricity, to literally deal with my own stuff and to get off this craziness of the fashion industry. And then I moved to Los Angeles and started all over again with nothing, figuring out how to, find a job. And I became a artist representative. And then the company started a photography representation business, which I ran. And that went until I met a great man that had only two flaws. One was that he was an alcoholic, and the other one, he was a pathological liar. But by the time I figured it out, Sabine, it was too late. I was already married. I had a baby, and we were in this recession. I got laid off. I had to figure out how to set up my own business. And then what I call the decade of disasters began.
So tell me about that time and how you literally got out of there to go to that next chapter in your life.
Yeah, so essentially, looking back, I married my mother, somebody who was mentally
Yeah.
completely unstable, a liar. My mother is not technically a liar. My mother just reframes everything that happened so she can live with the facts of
Yeah.
what she believes her life to be, right? So it's
Yeah.
sometimes today when I listen to her and she tells these stories, I sit there and I listen. I said, it's a really beautiful story. I said, the only problem is that's never really happened and the reason I know is I was there. But if it makes you feel good, by all means, go ahead. Just don't say it in my presence because it devalues my experience of what really happened. But for anybody else, go ahead and just hold on to that story for whatever reason. But I did marry my mother in that sense, and I created that same instability and that same hostility and that same challenge on whether I was lovable because he had so many problems and he was incapable of loving anybody. I mean, he to this day he just is incapable of loving anybody. And when I realized that was the big Northridge earthquake in Los Angeles, because then suddenly it's the middle of the night, you wake up, and an earthquake, for anybody who's never been in an earthquake, especially a 7.1, where it's like somebody takes you and just takes you by the shoulders and violently just shakes you. And it went on for a full minute and it just would not stop. And you hear transformers explode, car alarms going off, stuff is falling. I had a small child and I'm standing there and I'm yelling, to the nanny, get the baby, go under the dining room table. I'm, my stepson who was 12 at the time, get the cat, come over here. And my husband at the time completely, what? Huh? What? What's going on? I mean, useless, absolutely useless, Sabine. And that was the first time I'm going like, well, I don't think this is going to work. And then I thought about if this would have been the last day of my life, which it very easily could have been. And then you think about if this would have been the last day of my life, what would I have done differently? And I said, I need to get out. Like ASAP, because I was losing myself. I was turning into a person that I didn't want to be. There's this scene in this movie, Mrs. Doubtfire, where Robin Williams, dressed as the nanny, sits at the table and gets to finally ask his soon-to-be ex-wife what it was that made her walk away. And she said, because my husband didn't do his part, it made me become somebody I didn't want to be.
Yeah, I remember that line very, very clearly. And what you just shared is so important for us to realize. The question that you ask yourself, if this was my last day, did I really live to my full potential? And if the answer is no, then we have to move. We have to change. So what happened then?
And then I went to Germany just to get away from the shaking. I left my child. With my ex-husband. I said, I cannot. I have to now really take care of myself. Went by myself for 2 weeks and just took care of what I needed to do to be in a place that wasn't shaking for a moment. Had a long conversation with my father, many conversations with my father, came back and says, that's it, we're done. I'm going to divorce you. And that's what we did. And I had no money. And my ex-husband at that time had been working in my business, which was, after the earthquake, as you can imagine, not exactly flourishing because people would not fly to Los Angeles to produce in a city that was shaking, where there was just a major earthquake. So the jobs were very scarce and I did not know how I was going to survive. So I moved into a place from my former employee that was going into foreclosure. So they had moved out while they still had good credit and moved to a different city. And she had said, here's the key to my place, instead of whatever the $2,000 that you would normally pay me $800, and then stay as long as you get the eviction notice, and then you'll have to move. And that's where I lived.
So what was the next step for you in your life where you really were able to pull yourself together. And, I really wanted to go back to what you said that, well, you were like $135,000 in debt. And then you cracked the code and then selling your business to Bill Gates. So I'm sure our listeners really wanted to know more about that part of the story. So lead us into that.
Yeah. So basically, from there on, if you fast forward, the nanny that had left after the earthquake came back, and her parents had money, and they bought the place we were living in. And from there on, then when that ended, I moved into my own place, and my business did okay, so I went ahead, and then finally I'm at $1 million mark. So I'm in the top 4% of entrepreneurs, and I'm thinking, that's it. I got it figured out. Finally, things are humming. And then what happened is an employee got too close to a key vendor. They had a idea how to run their own business just without me. And next thing I know, I fired her. I fired her 2 weeks too late. She had taken my mailing list. She had taken my invoices. And they had called my vendors that I had billed and asked them to pay them on invoices that I had written.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
next thing I'm not getting paid, and they're getting paid. And I called the client. I said, "What's going on?" I said, "Oh no, the invoice has been paid, but we paid it to them." I said, "What do you mean?" And so I sued them, and I'm in this lawsuit now because I didn't know any better. I needed to be right, Sabine, because I was wronged. I mean, they stole from me. And as I'm in this bitter battle of being in a lawsuit, and for anybody listening, please don't do that. It's not about being right. It's about who has the biggest pockets and who can stand the fight the longest. The system is not meant to give you what you want. And even if you win, you lose in the end. So as I'm thinking I'm coming out of this, the production season kicks in, right? So I'm now $130,000 in debt because of the lawsuit, and I have no business because they took it. And so the production season comes, and now we have, like $500,000 worth of work on the book. And September 11th comes. And in one day, I lose $500,000 while I'm in this lawsuit, already $130,000 in debt. So a couple of months later, it was fake it. The lawsuit settles. It settles for nothing. So I got rid of my debt. I paid my attorney, and I literally, with the last $100, went and bought flowers at the flower mart here in Los Angeles, drove it to my attorney, thanked her, and then I had to start all over again. And now I have this idea for the stock photography syndication business, and I'm running up a spiral staircase as fast as I can. I have a great idea. It's the right time. It's the right market. I feel it in my bones. I am signing A-listers, and I get the top photographers in the world to sign in this category with me. But it is so expensive. I'm $135,000 in debt. Well, I borrowed money to pay interest on borrowed money. I mean, at this point, it's game over. I fly to Germany. I meet with my dad. My dad has a stroke. My father didn't have a stroke. My father had pancreatic cancer. So now my father dies 6 weeks later. So now I'm standing at the grave in Nether Bavaria, overlooking, out of Pfarrkirchen near Passau. I'm overlooking this beautiful valley, this Baroque church behind me. My father literally just been buried. My phone rings. It's my office in Los Angeles. We've been served a notice. So the house was sold to a new landlord who did not honor the verbal agreement that I had with the previous owner that I could run a home office. So he evicted me. So now I don't have a place. I don't have money. My best friend died. And I fell to my knees, Sabine, and I raised my fist and I yelled at God and I said, if you have a plan, this would be a great time to fill me in. Because at this point, you just don't get it. You go like, WTF? What is going on? I mean, I've done everything right. I mean, I didn't lie. I didn't cheat. I didn't do any of this. Why does this keep happening to me? And then I surrendered and I said, I fought a good fight. I'm not drowning in a puddle. At least it's a wide open ocean, with big waves crashing over me. I had done everything and I surrendered because I had nothing left to do. And then I come back. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do all of this, find a place, find an office, find a home. And I get a letter from the White House. the White House from the President of the United States.
Oh.
Now, the reason I got a letter from the White House is because I wrote a letter to the President of the United States. And I wrote a letter because my former mother-in-law was a complete nag. You need to write a letter to the President of the United States. If anybody can help you, the President can help you. He's the number one guy in the country. Have you written your letter to the President of the United States yet? Where is the letter have you written? Fine. I'm going to write this letter, so just so that you and I will never have to talk about this. But, I didn't think anything of it, Sabine. I mean, come on. Who writes that letter?
What was the letter about?
Well, I just said, look, you always on TV talking about that the small business is the backbone of the American economy. I need help. I said, I've been wiped out by somebody who's a liar and a cheat. I've been, September 11th took down the rest of my business. I'm rebuilding as fast as I can. I do what I can. I'm hiring people. I'm paying them. I said, but I'm out of money. I don't know what else to do. And so I just told him. And then the letter comes and says,
Let me hop in here real quick to share something with you. Have you ever tried to build your own website, start a newsletter, or build a course and charge for it? Have you ever wanted to make money online but are totally confused by all the different systems you need to have? That's why I use Kajabi. Kajabi is the most popular system for online marketers, coaches, thought leaders, and influencers. Kajabi helps online entrepreneurs take off. Over 100,000 of us use Kajabi and have made over $4 billion. Why not be part of it? The best thing is you don't have to figure out tons of systems or crazy technology to start your online business. Kajabi helps you do all of that, and it's all on one platform. That's why I use it. It makes my life so much easier, and I can even earn money while I'm sleeping. You can build your web pages, blogs, and membership sites. You can create offers, checkout pages, and collect money. You can host your videos. You can start your newsletter list, capture emails, start your marketing funnels, all in one place. It makes it fun and easy with awesome tutorials and support. Since I've joined Kajabi from the beginning, I have a special affiliate link that I would like to share with you. A 30-day free trial. So nothing to lose, but everything to gain. Just go to my link that's in the show notes, sabinekvenberg.com/resources, and we will redirect you to the free trial page. So now let's get back to the show.
and then the letter comes and says the president sends his best wishes. Now, let's just be clear here to your listener, Sabine. The president never saw this letter, right?
Yeah.
It was somebody in a mailroom, an intern that that interns at the White House doing these things. But the letter put me in touch with the Small Business Administration, and because they also got a letter from the White House, it went to the second in command. And now I'm walking into my meeting in the Small Business Administration, a government association that helps small businesses with funding and other assistance. And I meet the deputy chief director. And he says, I'll put in what you put in. And I had written a business plan, so my business plan was finished. I had work. I had a proven concept. And so within 3 months, they helped me find a bank to restructure my debt into a 10-year fixed loan that freed up my line of credit, that got me to break even 3 months later. Next thing, I'm the world leader in my category 18 months later, licensing these home stories into 79 countries all over the world. That's when a Bill Gates company comes.
Can I ask you what was your company? What were you doing? What was the service?
So we did a stock photography. So stock photography, so if anybody goes into the bank and they see that image of a house behind the bank that says, do you need a loan to refinance your house? Mm-hmm. Or do you need a HELOC or whatever? That image would have come from us.
I see.
If you go and look at, we did the brand leading image for Coldwell Banker, and we were in coffee table books. If you ever gone to IKEA and seen this black and white image of the bicycle that's leaning against a bridge in Amsterdam that sold over 5 million copies, look at the name. It says Beate Works. That's an image that was in our collections. One of our photographers found the Begoceo. Every coffee table book, every magazine in the world had our images, and we had celebrity at home stories. So we had Madonna's house, Seal's house, Julianne Moore, Simon Baker, Francis Ford Coppola, and that really made us a recognized industry expert. And that's what attracted the attention of this Bill Gates company that then said, can you tell us how you do it? And I said, absolutely not. You want it, you buy it. They said, how much? I said, millions. They said, fine.
That's how quick it went, right? Wow.
18 months from the worst moment, 18 months from when I buried my dad to when I was ready for acquisition.
Wow. This is an amazing story of comeback. And what I hear from the story is, number one, we just have to surrender. Sometimes that's what it takes to say, okay, here it is. I'm open to do whatever. And if we let go, because oftentimes our egos are attached to many other different things, or even those feelings of justice was not being served, or I lost everything to thieves, literally. What happens is we still hang on to that, and that can hold us back energetically. So when we let go and finally we are at the very bottom, said, okay, I'm open, show me. Things start to happen, and I see it with you. So that was phenomenal. Now, what you say for you as a person, of course, it's great to get offered millions for a company that you build, with your ideas and sweat. How did it make the person Beate? How did it change the person Beate? Did you feel that you turned into your next greater self?
That's an interesting take on it. I think when I look back and I tell the story, and I would say to your listeners, do you think that 10 years of hardship is worth a multi-million-dollar outcome? Then anybody would say, well, of course. The problem is you don't know that when you're in it. So all you have is your trust, or the lack of trust, or your desire to be more than what you are, and people telling you that you're nuts, that you have responsibilities. Why don't you get a job? I don't think anybody ever told me to get a job. I think people generally know I'm unemployable in that sense because I'm too opinionated. But I believe that if I were to take this experience and I reverse engineer it now, it's every spiritual principle, literally every single one. You have to have the belief. You have to have something that you can believe in. I didn't believe being a multimillionaire. I believed in that I believed that the joke could not be on me. That was my belief. It was an interesting sort of twist, right? Because we say you paint the picture of what you believe in and then you become that. Well, I painted a picture of what it couldn't possibly be. So, and somehow miraculously that worked, which never, now looking back, it's like, that's interesting that also worked, because it was so clear that this could not be. It could not be that the joke was on me. I mean, I couldn't fathom that God, spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it, would be so cruel that all of this, at the end of all of this, it would be na 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 na. I mean, it was unfathomable for me. Mm-hmm. But what it is. So I had the goal, and then I took the actions that I needed to take to be that. I did write the business plan. I did hire the people. I did do my licensing. I did take the trips. I put it all out. I put everything out. I didn't have no plan B. I burned the ships. There was no way back. There was only one way, two ways. I was either going to be bankrupt or I was going to make this happen. That was it. There was no other well, what if? No, there was nothing. And then it moved, but not until opportunities showed up as a challenge. So if opportunities would show up as opportunities in a Tiffany box with a nice bow on it, wouldn't that be great? But that's not the way it showed up. It showed up as a nagging ex-mother-in-law telling me to write a letter to the president of the United States. I mean, that is just ridiculous. If you really think of it, that's ridiculous. That's an opportunity. Seriously, that is how that showed up, but it did. That changed my life.
Yeah.
So you learn not to judge. And if it's something crazy that falls apart, maybe it is because it forces you to look somewhere where you didn't want to look. And so it stretches you to a point that you think you cannot be stretched any further, Sabine. That's, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think we are going through these phases or stages in life where we have a choice to stay there. But if we want to go further, we need to stretch further. And that is very uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about it. And now you are known as the growth architect, and you help women grow their business or their personal lives.
Yeah, I mean, very much like what we talked about today, there is no chance where you can separate one from the other. Women are a lot more connected to their work, and emotionally it's very difficult for a woman to be this at home and then show up to work and then be something completely different. Men are much better in compartmentalizing that than women are. So I don't just work with women. I work with a lot of women, but I also work with men, and I really help people to figure out what is it, where do you want to go, what's the strategy you need to get there, what are the systems that we need to build to put you on that path. And then when we have these, how do we build your authority to get you in front of the right people so that you can bring in clients consistently?
That is fantastic. And if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach you?
Go ahead and schedule an uncovery session. And make sure you mention Sabine's show Becoming to make sure that you get priority treatment. Go to uncoverysession.com, schedule a 15-minute complimentary session with a business growth advisor. We'll help you figure out kind of like what needs to happen on your next step. If you are a business owner and you heard something, go to our free quiz at Growth Blocker Quiz, where you can find out in a few minutes what your number one business growth blocker is. And then you get a report, and I'll share with you what you can do to remove it. And other than that, I'm all over social media under Beate Gillette. There's literally only one person with this name, and that's me. Or check out The Growth Architect.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I guess we have one thing in common. There's only one person. There's only one Beate Gillette, and there's only one Sabine Kvenberg. There's no other unique name. No, it's not. I swear that's the last of the last names. Beate, it was such a pleasure having this conversation today, and thank you for sharing your story. That was so inspirational, and I know our listeners, when they listen to this show episode, they know you can overcome anything. And thank you for sharing all the little golden nuggets that you spread throughout that show. And I'm sure we are going to talk very soon again.
Thank you, Sabine. It's been such an honor to be on your show. Thank you so much for having me.
That was my interview, and if you enjoyed it, give us a 5-star review, leave a comment, and share it with your friends. Thanks for listening. Until I see you again, always remember, serve from the heart, follow your passion, and live the life you imagine.